Scarves and Spikes match reaction podcast. I beg your pardon. Let's start again. Scarves and Spikes match reaction podcast as Atlanta United fall to Inter Miami CF 4-0 at Chase Stadium in Fort Lauderdale on Saturday evening. Sydney with the Henry possibly a little bit later on. He had some things to take care of with his MLS Espanol duties, but he might be joining us here in a little bit. But you have me for now, and we'll talk through what we saw against Inter Miami, a match where, considering how many players were out on international duty, how many players were injured for Atlanta United or sick. If you're who was it that was sick? Nick Sesak, still dealing with an illness. It sounds like it pretty much went the way you thought it would, with players like Lionel Messi, Luis Suarez, Jordi Alba, who all scored for Inter Miami on Saturday night. Went about the way you thought it would. Eventually, the dam kind of broke for Atlanta United after a while, and they, again, suffering that 4-0 loss to Inter Miami, who needed that match to improve their own playoff standing. Of course, the supporter shield is long gone for them by virtue of Philadelphia Union last weekend, but Inter Miami looking to move up the standings themselves and guarantee themselves a top 4 spot in the Eastern Conference and getting a needed win. Atlanta United, of course, now needing a win or a draw to avoid finishing with a wooden spoon for 2025. And listen, if you were to say at the beginning of the season, before the season started, that Atlanta United would be in contention for the wooden spoon, he would have been laughed at, considering the players that they brought in, considering sort of the momentum that they were enjoying at the end of the season during the playoff run, where they eliminated Miami for the playoffs in the first round. It'd be pretty wild to think that Atlanta United would be in the position to even be close to finishing with the wooden spoon. But as it were, Atlanta United, again, if they lose to DC United on Saturday, October 18th, they will finish with the wooden spoon and finish dead last for the first time in MLS history. Already guaranteed their lowest ever finish in a non-COVID season is Atlanta United, but now another loss, one final loss on the final day of the regular season, decision day, will guarantee that they will finish dead last in MLS. And it's just, it's just incredible that we were at this point where we're talking about this even being a possibility for Atlanta United. The ambition that they have, again, the players that they've brought in, the overall, ambitions that this club has, as they've mentioned, hey, we want to be one of the top clubs in North America. We want to, compete for trophies every year. And now you're going to get a trophy, possibly. You get a wooden spoon, which is a trophy nobody wants. But I'll say this: if there's one, I guess, silver lining from this, Atlanta United will get the first overall pick at the MLS Super Draft, and that looks like increasingly by the day it'll be Ransford Gian from Clemson. And if you know Greg Gowder, he's mentioned Ransford Gian a lot. A Herman Trophy finalist, I believe, or semifinalist. I gotta. Yeah, he's on the watch list. He's on the midseason watch list. Ransford Gian for Clemson, and looking increasingly like he will be the number 1 overall pick in the MLS Super Draft come this December. And right now, if Atlanta United loses to DC United, they'll get that number 1 overall pick. So Ransford Gian could be coming to Mercedes-Benz Stadium next season as a member of Atlanta United. So I guess if there's any promising things to come out of this terrible season, I'm saying this kind of tongue-in-cheek, that's it. And again, not a position that Atlanta United would want to be in the first place, but that's where we are right now. So yeah, Atlanta United 4-0 loss to Inter Miami in Fort Lauderdale. I want to start with Jaden Hibbert, and if you look at each of the goals, maybe the one that Alba scores, you can pin on Hibbert, right? I think ultimately, right, he gets caught in two minds. He gets kind of caught Yeah, I think Danny Higginbottom was saying in the broadcast last night that he just gets caught in no man's land, and that comes down to just overall decision making. It's a great strike either way by Alba. It's a really good chip, really clever chip that I don't think really any keeper gets to. Messi's goal was pretty well taken. It comes off a really poor giveaway by Tristan William. We've mentioned him how many times on this show, on this podcast. And then Suarez just in the possible goal while falling down that really, I put this on X. I posted it after he scored it. No keeper on earth is getting to that ball. Just a really clever, well taken strike. He didn't mean to hit it. Obviously, Suarez didn't. And he ultimately hits it, and it goes in the back of the net. And that's pretty much all she wrote. Messi at the fourth, and that's the ball game. Elena falls for nothing. That being said, again, we see another example of, you know, Jaden Hibbert being let down by his defense, being let down by the players in front of him, especially on that first goal. Just a poor giveaway by Muyimba. I mean, it's just mind-boggling how the midfield drops off when Muyimba is on the pitch, and ultimately you have nobody else that you could put out there because of the number of players that are missing for Atlanta United, and pretty much stuck in a no-win situation. You have to play William Ba, a player that I think that you have to part ways with him right at the end of the season. Just he's a liability, really, with the ball. Pretty much every match he comes in, and just the midfield level just drops off whenever he plays, and it's unfortunate. But he gives away a really cheap ball, gives away possession, I should say, really cheaply, and Atlanta United is down 1-0. And then, of course, the dam breaks, like I said earlier, and they find themselves down 4-0 at the end of it all. But again, by and large, I don't pin that on Jaden Hibbert. Of course, when you look at the scoreline, it says 4-0. You say, what a poor job that the keeper did, right? I don't think so. Ultimately, he makes 6 saves, and a couple of really good saves. He had a really good one on Messi. Messi's essentially one-on-one with him, and he makes himself big to take away the space for Messi to shoot at. And I thought for a young goalkeeper, for a player like him, still learning his way, still finding his way in this league, that was a really key moment for him in his development. You have the best player in the world in front of you. You have the composure to really, again, make yourself big and take away that opportunity for him. I thought that was a really good effort by Jaden there. And again, he gives up the 4 goals. But again, I look at that and can't really point to either of them to say, you know what, Jaden Hibbert really didn't show a keeper's instinct when I look at either of those goals. I can't say that about any of them. He was composed. He was good in this area. He did what he could to keep Atlanta United in it. Again, he made 6 saves. I believe, I'll have to check back. I believe that might be a career high. And maybe I feel like he made more saves on Tuesday. And I'm watching the goal back. Messi's second goal, the 4th goal of the night. He just gets beat far post, which again, do you really fault him for that? It's a long ball over the top. Messi settles it and just beats Hibbert far post. I mean, how many keepers would give that goal up? I mean, probably a long list, right? So maybe marginally fault him for that. Just maybe. The chip by Alba, maybe, but other than that, I mean, what can you point a finger at for Jaden Hibbert, right? How do you point the finger at him for those 4 goals that LA United gave up? And they're just symptomatic of what this team has been. This team has no attacking prowess. This team's defense just lets it down match after match. This team, just 1 or 2 moments or 3 moments you let off and you're punished for it. And that's just been the story for this team. I would hope that the front office does not make any rash decisions when it comes to Jaden Hibbert and his place in this team in 2026. Because for me personally, I feel like a lot of Atlanta United fans share my sentiment on this. For me, I think he's your number one keeper. And I know what people will say. Well, they traded Morales to Montreal. They loaned out Cobb to Colorado, which, yes, I totally get. But I think that for a position like keeper, where you're really looking to hit the reset button, I think, after 2025, especially with Brad Guzan, his contract being up in 2025, and really, I feel like all indications are that he will not be back with Atlanta United in 2026. I mean, you have to turn the page, right? But I think Jaden Hibbert has proven that he is your number one goalkeeper for 2026. Do you bring in a veteran keeper to help him along, to play in cup competitions? I think you do. I think you do. Is it Josh Cohen? No, I don't think so, because he's making too much money to play 1 or 2 games a year. Bring in a cheap veteran. Bring in a older player, free agent who has been in MLS for a while, as kind of a player who can be a mentor to Jaden Hibbert, who again has the experience behind him to play in those cup competitions, to kind of deputize Hibbert when he needs to take a match off or things like that. I think you have to really consider, again, not copying the blueprint that you used with Morales and Cobb, right? Jaden Hibbert has the potential to be a player that can be a cornerstone of this club for years if he wants to. And yes, it's only been a handful of matches, but I think from what I've seen, I think he is your goalkeeper of the future. And if I'm Garth Lagerwey and Chris Henderson, I lock him down in the off season for multiple years. I don't be tempted by inking another goalkeeper, another number one goalkeeper for multiple years. I don't go with that temptation. I would like to. I would think that you drafted Hibbert with this intention to be the number one keeper in the first place, and you saw it with, again, Morales. He saw it with Cobb. Atlanta United really forced to move them out because of Mihai, because of Barrocal, and that's nothing against their respective performances for Atlanta United. That being said, you can't make the same mistake with Jaden Hibbert. I think he is your number one keeper. I think Atlanta United would do well to keep him in the fold as your number one keeper for 2026 and beyond. Omer saying Atlanta is probably signing Horvath. I know Ethan Horvath was a name that came out, I think, last year as a potential player that could make his way to Atlanta United, former U.S. national team. Goalkeeper has really fallen out of the keeper pool for the United States. But 30 years old, currently with Cardiff City in League One. Plenty of experience with Cardiff City and in the Premier League and the Championship. I mean, that's a potential player that they could bring in. Again, not as a starter. I don't think as a starter, but if he is a starter, maybe for 1 year. But outside of that, maybe bring him in as a veteran again, as someone who has tread on his tires. He's now the oldest keeper in the world. He's only 30 years old right now. So he's a player that could come in and maybe help in the development of Jaden Hibbert. Of course, he'll have Brad Guzan around, I'm sure, around the club in some form and fashion, right? Even though he will be presumably no longer with the club. But that's the move I would make if I'm Atlanta United. Definitely sign Jaden Hibbert long term, bring him in, because he's proven that he can be number one keeper. And what you saw against Miami, what you saw against Columbus, the 5 goals Atlanta allowed against Columbus, shouldn't spook you, shouldn't scare you off from Jaden Hibbert's potential. Again, that's more to his team. That's his team letting him down again. And I think, again, he's their number one keeper moving forward in 2026 and beyond. Having said that, let's take a look at some of the younger players that came in for Atlanta United. We saw Dominic Chunky start for Atlanta. We saw Cooper Sanchez start for Atlanta United. Chonky his second start with the five stripes. Sanchez his first start for Atlanta United, and by all accounts, I thought they did okay. I thought they did well. We've already seen a bit of what Chonky could do. I think he carried himself well throughout the match. Of course, I think back to the NYCFC match where he made that really poor pass, which was his only mistake of the match back then. And he still has a lot of room to grow as a player, right? If he wants to contribute professionally for Atlanta United 2026 and beyond. So I thought Dom Chong Ki, he looked really active in the first half. Maybe tailed off as the match went on, but looked really good. He looked good for being in there just really on an emergency basis with Atlanta United's ranks reduced due to international duty. Cooper Sanchez, has a motor on him. He's going to be hopefully one of the players that's part of Atlanta United's future. If they don't do what they did with him that they did to Morales and Cobb, I thought he did okay as well. I thought he was good when he was called upon, and it's really a throwaway match. Really, he's out there again because Atlanta United are then on personnel, and again they were good. They were good. Salmat Taffarello unfortunately had to come in for Stian Gregerson, who was injured. He came out injured, and we wait to hear what his diagnosis is, but I would imagine he's done for the year. Is Stian Gregerson. And that's a Taffarello that did okay. That's a Taffarello that did okay in the time that he was given with Atlanta United. Patrick Weah came in a little bit later on, wasn't on that long to really make a legitimate impact for Atlanta United. Only about 6 minutes plus stoppage time, I believe. And then, of course, Hibbert, as I mentioned, allowing, of course, the 4 goals, making 6 saves. Again, goals that you can't really fault him for. So all in all, you had to play younger players because you're kind of forced into that if you're running dialect. I wish he had played younger players, all throughout this past few weeks when we knew that Atlanta United was not going to be in the playoffs. But when he did, I thought they acquitted themselves well. Henry and I talked about it, though, during our 3 takeaways that you can watch on YouTube or listen on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and iHeart. We talked about it's the older players that are really letting Atlanta United down. I mentioned Muyumba, the giveaway. Amador, he had a defensive mistake, didn't track back on Wonga last week against LAFC. These older players, we talked about maybe they're very comfortable with where they are. They know that they have their jobs regardless. And it's unfortunate to see that. Unfortunate to have that play out on a weekly basis with this team. Younger players, they have a chip in their shoulder, right? They know that their spots on the team are not guaranteed, for lack of a better term, right? They know that they have to work twice as hard. They have to grind twice as hard for them to break through to the first team, to prove that they belong in the first team setup. And I think that's what you're seeing with these younger players like Chonky, Sanchez, Hibbert, Mazzaferro, who's not a young player in the traditional sense. I think he's 24 or 25, I believe. So he's not young, but not old either. But you see the hunger. Nick in the chat saying older guys didn't seem to want it. The young guys are hungry. And I agree with that. I agree. They don't have anything to lose. They again, they have that chip on the shoulder. They have that hunger. They have that desire that I wish all Atlanta United players showed. And again, like I said earlier, it's unfortunate that we don't see that from this team on a weekly basis. And I would hope that the players that Atlanta bring in, presumably in the offseason, have that chip on their shoulder each and every week, have the desire, have that will to perform and play for Atlanta United, play for the badge, represent the badge well every time they step out on the field. Yes, you'll make mistakes. Yes, you'll have some missteps along the way, but pick yourself up and move forward. Don't keep doing the same things you've done match after match after match. Pick yourself up, improve your performances, get out there on the training ground, perform, play, train well, play well, and really prove that you need to be in this team setup. I think that and we've mentioned this before, I think there's a lot of complacency on Atlanta United's roster. And hopefully we'll see a lot of that complacency being taken off the roster as the offseason goes on. And I think, though, that a lot of that, some of that rests with Ronnie Dyla. And, I've said in the past, I think Dyla will be back in 2026, but he will have a short leash. I don't know if he's going to be back in 2026. I'm kind of in that camp right now because, as we've talked about in the past, in what area has his team genuinely improved under Ronnie Dyla? I mean, seriously speaking, what area can you see from attack to midfield to defense has improved with Ronnie Dyla? Goalkeeper, I will say that Jaden Hebert has been marginally been better than Greg Gazan. Is probably confirmation bias speaking, but you see he brings something fresh, something new to the table. Luke Brennan, I feel like, brings a spark to the wings whenever he's out there. Will Riley has been good when he's out there. Your defenders, Mihai and Benagal, have been okay. Last night, Saturday, you kind of throw out. Columbus, you kind of throw out. Outside of that, who has improved for Atlanta United? Latte Lot can't find the back of the goal. Miguel Almiron has been a shell of himself all season long. Saba Lobjanitsa has fallen off a cliff. Tristan Muyamba has been a 4 or 5 defender out of 10 more often than not. I think about Michael Parkhurst's comment about him being a coach killer. Gives you a 5 or 6 or 7 one day and a 4 or 5 the other day. It's just very frustrating. And you look at this team again, who has improved, who has done better from start of the season till now. I don't think you can name any player on this roster that has been better for the start of the season until now. I feel like the writing on the wall has been, or was shown rather, in preseason when this team struggled in their preseason matches. I think all of that is playing out again as we have seen throughout this regular season, with Atlanta United being on the verge of finishing with a wooden spoon for the first time in club history. Omer saying, in regards to potential of Ronnie Dyla being sacked at the end of the season, saying they all know it's coming. They're just waiting for it to happen. And I would imagine if Atlanta United does elect to go in a different direction, it'll happen in really short order after decision day. But at the same time, you can't risk, if you do part ways with Ronnie Dyla, you can't risk dragging this out, right? Because you have a winter window coming up, and you need players in here that fit your profile, the profile of your manager. You have Gio Savarese out. He's available. He's up in the New York area. He could be an option. Jim Curtin's turned you down. Maybe give him another shot. I saw a theory out there that maybe the coach you want is still available, and you're just waiting for him to come I beg your pardon, the coach you want is still coaching, and Atlanta are just waiting for him to come available before making a move for him. I don't know if that's really the case. I don't have any information that would suggest that, insider information that would suggest that. But I don't know. Maybe that's a possibility. Ultimately, Atlanta United can't waste time if they do decide to move on from Ronnie Dyla. They need to act fast, and act fast to get a coach in, act fast to get this club back to where it was in 2017, 2018, to an extent 2019, because I think back to what Kevin Egan said with the World Cup coming into town in 2026, the eyes of Atlanta, or the eyes of the world being on Atlanta for the World Cup. You can't risk your club being in a mess. You can't risk your club struggling the way that Atlanta United is right now. And things need to improve, and they need to improve in a hurry. And Garth Lagerwey and Chris Henderson have a massive amount of work to do in the offseason to improve this club. Going to pause for a little bit and do a little housekeeping. Scarvesandspikes.com is your home for Atlanta United news, analysis, and insight. Go there, take a look at our articles that we put out every day. Our first reaction that Tyler writes, our match recaps, our player ratings, all that great stuff is at scarvesandspikes.com. There's also a link to our store. Shop our store. You get a hattie, get a hoodie, get a hat, get a mug. Weather's starting to get cooler, so go to our store. There's a link at scarvesandspikes.com, and you'll be able to find it pretty easily. Patreon.com/scarvesandspikes is another way you can support us. We have 3 tiers: $1.17, $5, $10 a month. Each of the 3 tiers gets you access to our Discord, where you can chat with other Atlanta United fans about Atlanta United, MLS, and pretty much anything on your mind. Patreon.com/scarvesandspikes is the way you can get access to that. If you are listening on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and iHeart, thanks so much. Please rate us 5 stars. Please leave a review. Let us know how we're doing. We are live on YouTube every Sunday night, 9 p.m. Eastern Time, Monday night, 9 p.m. Eastern Time with MLS Monday. Wednesday night, 7 p.m. Eastern Time is our main podcast. We are also live before every Atlanta United match. In fact, on Decision Day against DC United on Saturday, we'll be at the Nest on 4 bar inside the Insignia by Hilton Hotel. Join us at 4 p.m. Eastern Time. We will be live there. I'll be there. Tyler will be there. Henry will be there, I believe. Jackson will be there as well. We'll be there to hang out with you, talk about the match coming up. We'd be happy to meet you. We'd love to see you there. 4 p.m. Nest on 4 bar inside the Insignia by Hilton Hotel, Saturday, October 18th, before Atlanta United takes on DC United. On Decision Day, we will get you out in plenty of time for the 6 p.m. kickoff, but join us there, 4 p.m. Eastern Time, Saturday, October 18th, and inside the Nest on 4 bar. And of course, if you can't join us live in person, watch on YouTube on the Scarves and Spikes YouTube channel. By the way, if you are watching on YouTube for the first time joining us, please like, subscribe, and share our content. It helps us out as we look to bring you the best Atlanta United coverage on the internet. What else do we want to talk about? Again, the supporters, or not the supporters shield, because Atlanta United are not close to it. The wooden spoon. So LA Galaxy winning their match 2-1. So the permutations are clear for Atlanta United to avoid the wooden spoon. You must either draw or beat DC United to guarantee that they will not finish last place in MLS. A loss means that they will finish with the worst record in the league. And again, I go back to, if you were to tell me before the season began that Atlanta United would be in a position to be in the wooden spoon contention, I'd have thought you were crazy, because again, you bring in Latte Lot. Let's talk about Latte Lot. He had, that's TRA who had the chance in front. But Latte Lot, he hasn't done much for you outside of the first month of the season. And what's extended to the other DPs. Alexei Miranchuk, outside of the summer, has a stretch in the summer where he was really in form. Hasn't done much for you. Miguel Marone hasn't done much for you. We talked to Matt Doyle the other day. It's just a situation where you look at moving on from one or more of your DPs. I always felt that Miranchuk was certainly a contender because he's been here for the longest time. But Matt Doyle brought up a good point. Do you look at selling Latte Lot for a loss? I mean, it's impossible to think that that's a possibility, but are you just at a situation where you just wash your hands of Latte Lot and say, you know what, we need something better up front? Because if Jamal TRA, who no disrespect to him, is performing better than you, from a striker standpoint, something's wrong. And I get that Latte Lot has had injuries this season, but that's still inexcusable. The amount of money that you've paid for Latte Lot to score, 7 goals this season isn't good enough. And Atlanta United needs to make a decision based on whether they feel that Latte Lot can break out of it in 2026 and bring him back for 2026 and beyond, or sell him at a loss. Because I feel like if they do bring him back for 2026, you have to believe that he'll have a pretty short leash to perform. Because if you get to the middle of next season, he's still not performing the way you want him to perform, you have to pull the plug. I think Atlanta United has to decide whether it's worth waiting for him to break out, or do they need to pull the plug now and just wash their hands of him and say, let's open this slot up and bring in a quality striker, one that we trust can put the ball in the back of the net with regularity. Yorgos Yakimakis did that for you. I mean, he was injured, and Atlanta United didn't want to take the risk of signing him to a longer-term contract due to his injury, and he ended up leaving for Cruz Azul. He's now with PAOK, I believe, in Athens. But he was a player that you could count on to put the ball in the back of the net. He played with that grit. He played with that chip on his shoulder. Atlanta United around him wasn't very good, unfortunately, but he played with that chip on his shoulder. He wasn't afraid to get stuck in. And I'm not asking Atlanta's next striker to get stuck in, but I am asking him to score goals. I mean, he's being paid too much to not score goals, and that's a decision that Atlanta United has to really make this offseason, if not in the middle of next season. And again, you have to ask yourself, is it worth waiting on Latte Lot to get better, or do you just pull the plug now? Omer saying in the chat, Latte Lot doesn't fit this team. He's a poacher, not a target forward. I think you're seeing that because you look at the chances. I mean, earlier in the season, he wasn't getting opportunities. He wasn't being fed the ball. But when he was being fed the ball, he didn't do anything with it. He would just get it stuck in his foot. He would fail to shoot. And when he did shoot, he was off target. And you're paying him too much money to miss the target. You're paying him too much money to not take his chances when they're afforded him. And again, you're putting a lot of that on the players around him to get him service. But again, when he got that service, he didn't do anything with it. Latte Lot is making $4.03 million in 2025. And for the production that you're getting from him, you have to have some serious conversations about whether he has a place on this team in 2026, I think. Alexei Moranchuk, I mean, we've already spoken about him. You have to have a serious conversation if he belongs on this team in 2026. It's just, you've gotten, this is a season and a half of subpar performances outside of some little blips. You didn't bring him in as a number 10 to have blips. You brought him in to make plays consistently, to feed your striker, to boost your attack. He's not done that enough, not nearly enough. Do you part ways with him? Maybe at a loss or break even and free up that DB slot. Miguel Almiron, I don't think you do anything with him. I mean, I think he does retire in Atlanta. I don't think you sell him. I don't think you get rid of him. I think you move him to the 10. I think his mobility has kind of decreased. He's not the player that he was with Atlanta United in 2017 and 2018. He was never going to be honest with you. But move him to the 10. Maybe bring in another striker. Maybe bring in a winger. Or maybe a TAM winger or DP striker. One of the two. But you need to elevate your performances in the attack. Saba Lobjanitsa hasn't done anything barely in 2025. Do you part ways for him? Or you part ways with him, I should say. You move on to the back line. Stian Gregerson, $920,000, a TAM contract for a player who has been injured time and time again. again, we said earlier, he may be gone for the season. Is it worth keeping him on a TAM deal? Do you try to move him out? Do you buy him out? Do you see if someone wants to buy him? It's going to be tough due to his contract, due to his injury history, but do you see if there's a willing trade partner or willing team to transfer him to bring him on as an option for their center back system? Because you do have Berto, you do have Mihai. I feel like the writing is on the wall for Gregerson. I think that maybe the front office would do well to move him out when the season is over. And I hate to say that because we said it before, we'll say it again. With Jan Gregerson is out there, the defense looks better. It really does. I think he's your best defender. And unfortunately, with his injury history, I think you may have to move him out of the team altogether, especially with the money that he is making. As far as who else is gone, I mean, we'll have the discussion when the season is over, but I have to believe that maybe a Brooks Lennon is gone. I have to believe that maybe Ronald Hernandez is gone. If he does come back, definitely on a reduced contract. He's at just under $300,000 right now. I don't think you bring him back on a $300,000 salary. I think you bring him back at much less. Make him a depth option behind a new right back, whoever that would be. And you go on down the line and look at the players that are on option years. You have that decision to make. William Byer, you mentioned him. I think he's on the outs. I think you have to part ways with him. And I don't want to go down the list because, again, we'll do that, I'm sure, collectively here in the next few weeks here. Really in the next 2 weeks because the season will be over. But, you have some decisions to make if you're Garth Lagerwey and Chris Henderson. You have a decision to make as well with the coach. Again, I go back to, you can't really point to really any player who's improved from the start of the season till now under Ronny Deila. And I think that's the proof is in the pudding. I've said, bring him back, let him bring his players in, but what if the same things continues to happen in 2026? Then you have to start all over again. And I know that Chris Henderson and Garth Lagerwey, I should say, has said that Ronny Deila is safe, that the DPs are safe. I know that Chris Henderson has said that you need to produce results if you're Ronny Deila, but he hasn't. He's not produced results. The team has won once, I believe, since Chris Henderson said that. And I think that's all you need to know with Ronny Deila. Again, you have Adrio Savarese, you have Jim Curtin, who probably isn't coming, but you have him available. Peter Vermees, Bob Bradley, even. Will Bob Bradley come here? I don't know. I don't think so. Do you bring a coach from overseas? Hopefully they have that Jesper Sorensen effect that he has had with Vancouver. Is there a USL championship coach that you bring in? I don't think it is, but is that a will you tap? Ben Pyramid has been killing it at the Charleston Battery. Do you bring a coach like him in? Again, I don't know if Atlanta United would do that, would take a chance on a USL championship coach, even though he's had success everywhere he's been. But is that what you do? Do you bring that Rob Valentino? I don't know if you do, because you'll be bringing him back based on the playoff run that they did in 2024, but the players played for him. The players rallied around him. I don't know. I'm just throwing something at the wall. Maybe it's a sentimental hire that Atlanta United will do, but I don't know. Is he the person that Atlanta United needs to turn to? I'm not being paid to make these decisions. I'm just sitting behind a microphone, speculating and throwing things out there. But yeah, it's going to be a very interesting offseason for Atlanta United. And that offseason will come after October 18th, when Atlanta United plays DC United for the wooden spoon, ladies and gentlemen. Yes, the wooden spoon is in play for Atlanta United and potentially the number one pick in the MLS Super Draft. it's fun time in the Atlanta United land. And I honestly hope that we never, ever have to talk about that ever being a possibility for Atlanta United. But that is on Saturday, October 18th. Again, we will be live at the Nest on 4 bar inside the Signia by Hilton Hotel 2 hours before kickoff at 4 p.m. Eastern Time. Again, we'll be there for the hour. We'll get you out at around 5 or so, get you over there to the stadium just in time for kickoff. We hope to see you there. We hope to hang out with you and say hello to you. Again, if you can't make it out in person, you can watch on YouTube on the Scarves and Spikes YouTube channel. MLS Monday, 9 p.m. Eastern Time. Join us there. We'll take a look back at the few matches that were played over the weekend. Yes, there was MLS action, other MLS action outside of Atlanta versus Inter Miami. Vancouver versus Orlando was a nail biter, and Thomas Mueller with an absolute banger to win it at the death for Vancouver. We'll talk about that. And of course, Wednesday, we'll be back with our normal 7 p.m. Eastern Time show as we get you ready for Atlanta United versus DC United season finale. Again, live on YouTube. Again, you can listen also on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and iHeart. Leave a like, rate us 5 stars. Let us know how we're doing over there. And if you're watching on YouTube, please like, subscribe, share our content. Let people know about us. Let people know we're here. Let people know what we are doing. We do appreciate it. I am at SH Rights on Instagram. No, I'm not. Let me try that again. I'm at SH Rights on X, SH Rights on Blue Sky, SidH.soccer on Instagram, and Threads. Scarves, the letter N, Spikes on X, scarvesandspikes.com on Blue Sky, Scarves and Spikes on Instagram and Threads, facebook.com/scarvesandspikes, and remember, scarvesandspikes.com. Support us, support our coverage at patreon.com/scarvesandspikes. Thanks for joining us. We will see you next time.